when my dad took the picture, again, it was on the itinerary, and they were supposed to do it together, but it turned out that Charles had another engagement on the same day, so they weren't. My dad wasn't sure whether she was going to do it because doing it on your own is very different to doing it with your husband.
Hi, my name is Kate Mansey, and this is Royal Confidential for The Times. Today I'm joined by Zak and Samir Hussein, two photographers whose family have spent decades capturing the royal family. It is a real pleasure to meet you both, and thanks for joining us digitally today. It really is a family firm because your father, Anwar Hussein, took some of the most iconic pictures of the late Princess Diana. And now you're following in the family footsteps, both of you, to take pictures of the royal family and a host of other celebrities, well-known personalities, you name it. I mean, some of your images just go around the world in seconds, and it's a real thrill to see them. Now there's going to be a big exhibition in London. It's been around the world of some of the best pictures from the Hussein family. And how did it become a family business? At what age did you both think, I'm going to do what Dad does? Maybe for Zak first.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been surrounded by photography. That's all we've kind of known my dad doing. And so I've always kind of been interested in photography, but I never set out necessarily to be a photographer. At college, I kind of did media. At university, I studied film and video, so I thought maybe I'll go in that direction. But then I went travelling for a year and came back and got a job at a picture agency. So that was on the picture desk, starting as a researcher and then a picture editor. But I started taking pictures in my spare time, like a lot of music and that kind of thing. So it kind of started that way with music and entertainment and celebrity. And it kind of ended up moving more into the royal type thing. So it's kind of over a long period of time that I've ended up where I am at the moment.
You drifted into following your father into.
Yeah.
And what about you, Samir? Did you always think that's brilliant, that's what I want to do? Or how did you get into the kind of family business, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we were lucky from a young age in that we were surrounded by these amazing pictures. We used to go to a lot of the jobs with my dad when we were younger. I remember, going, for instance, going to the polo when he used to take pictures of Diana and sort of hanging out there by the side of the pitch and sort of being exposed to the royals from quite a young age. And we used to see these amazing pictures of Diana with him going away on all these tours and coming back and seeing all these pictures that were playing out in the media. And so I think we were both really interested in photography from a young age. But a bit like Zak, I didn't study photography, and my dad didn't really encourage us to go into it. I think he wanted us to find our own path. So I actually studied journalism at university, but still had a big interest in photography. And it was really after university when I moved to London, a bit like Zak, I started working got a bit of work with a photo agency and started shooting and didn't really look back from that. Started doing smaller royal engagements and started going out with my dad more on royal jobs, and it really sort of took off from that. I mean, that was at a time before William and Harry had gotten engaged, so I used to do a lot of stuff with William and Harry. And then, a couple of years later, after I'd started shooting them, William announced his engagement to Kate, and then things really started to get interesting and take off.
And it's been non-stop ever since.
It has. It really has.
I mean, what are the images from your father's brilliant collection that stand out for you both, that you think, wow, that's a stunning photograph?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's so many that it's really hard to pin it down to one or even a handful. But with the exhibition, we've managed to kind of narrow it down to some of the best and iconic, and a lot that people haven't seen before. Even myself and Sam, we've sort of never seen a lot of these pictures before. But I mean, things like the Taj Mahal is a great picture. Some of the portraits he's done of Diana. So yeah, I mean, he's also photographed the Queen and all other members of the royal family. But I think the Diana ones really stand out.
The Taj Mahal as well. It's interesting hearing you both talk about how you got into it and the sort of paths that you took, because going from a sort of journalistic background, Samir, and Zak, you coming from more of the kind of film video background, is that you both actually started by telling stories rather than the pictures. And I see that a lot in your work, that you're trying to tell the story through the picture, and that's why your images are always picked by picture editors to go on the front page of the magazines and the newspapers, and websites, because they tell that story. And I think that Taj Mahal story said it all, didn't it? Because there was Princess Diana on her own outside this monument built, in love, essentially, in India. And then tell me about going back there, Zak, with Kate and William, because you actually recreated that image with Kate and William on tour, but a very different story.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it was so iconic with Diana, especially the fact she was on her own. And it was a tour of William and Kate when they went to India and Bhutan, and it was actually the last engagement of the tour. And it was quite a long, tiring tour, but we all knew it was on the itinerary, so it's something that we're building up to, and it was a really great picture to end the tour with. And I think knowing that my dad had taken that picture kind of adds an element of pressure to make sure that I don't mess it up, because it's it's a really iconic picture. But even though it's the same, sitting on the same bench and stuff, it's just it tells a completely different story of two people that are very much in love. And
they were there together, of course, unlike Diana, who was very much on the own.
Exactly, and that's the kind of thing that, when my dad took the picture, again, it was on the itinerary, and, they were supposed to do it together, but it turned out that Charles had another engagement on the same day, so my dad wasn't sure whether she was going to do it, because doing it on your own is very different to doing it with your husband.
Well, do you feel a little bit sorry for Charles about that story, because it was all kind of, oh, poor Diana, she's there on her own, but he had this long-standing commitment to speak at an event elsewhere, and he thought the best thing to do would be to honour that rather than do that image. So as always, there's the kind of the sort of story behind the image as well, which is fascinating, isn't it?
Well, what's interesting as well is that Charles had been there on his own again. He's been photographed there years before.
Yes.
So it's kind of this situation where you've got Charles on his own before Diana, and then Diana on her own, and then Diana's son with his wife. So yeah, it's kind of a strange thing, really.
Yeah, I think what made it what made it worse as well is that my dad says that when my dad actually photographed Charles when he went there on his own, years before, when he was there with Diana, and he said to the press at the time that I really hope to bring my future wife back here someday when I have the opportunity. And of course there was that opportunity, and it didn't work out, and we're just left with this really symbolic picture of her on her own as their marriage was starting to deteriorate.
And also, I think, interestingly as well, both of those pictures almost didn't happen, because when Charles, said that he's got another engagement, there was a whole thing of whether she was going to do it or not. So I think it was kind of my dad tells me it was very much a last minute decision for her to do it. So that almost didn't happen. And then when I was there, again, we knew they were visiting the Taj Mahal, so automatically you assume they're going to do that picture. But it was very much the case that the press officers said, look, that they're not necessarily going to do this picture. It's totally up to them. We haven't taken, we haven't even suggested it. And they say, so it's very much they will decide when they're there. So, even down to the fact that I was in position ready to take this picture, I still didn't know 100% whether it was going to happen.
Did you get any feedback from your dad about the image?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I did it quite well, to be honest. It's not.
It's a brilliant shot. It
yeah,
is.
But like I say, it was kind of in the back of your mind that
will they, won't they?
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. And just before it happened, a load of the security, the local police, came and tried to move me from my position in front of the bench. And it was all a bit bizarre because they were saying there's a royal visit coming, you can't stand there, and we were kind of saying no.
That's exactly why I'm here.
That's exactly why I'm here. And there was this huge argument going on between the palace press officers and the local police. And you can sort of see the cars arriving, and it was all going on at the same time. And just at the last minute, they kind of agreed to let us do this picture. So it was all, not only was I kind of under pressure for this picture, for another reason, it almost didn't happen as well. So it's totally, the Taj Mahal.
Stars aligned.
Yeah.
It sounds like a classic foreign tour in that respect, then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so.
And you two will know a thing or two about that. I'm thinking now, of course, about the French state visit, Samir, when the king went out to France. It was obviously supposed to be his first foreign state visit as king. We know it was postponed, so he went to Germany in the end first as planned, but that French section didn't happen till later. When it did finally happen, there was a fantastic image that you took of the king, which was then chosen by Buckingham Palace this year to be the image that joined with that announcement that the king had been diagnosed with cancer. So there was from my end of it, as a writer, we had this big briefing about the information that was about to be released. Lots of, backwards and forwards questions which were being answered about the king's condition. But alongside all that information, we had this image which was provided from you. So tell us a bit about that image, because it spoke volumes to me. He was standing there looking out quite uncertainly into the future, and with that cancer diagnosis in your back of your mind, when you see that image, it was quite different. Of course, the picture was taken beforehand. So can you tell us about how you shot that now very iconic image?
Yeah, well, obviously the picture was taken a long time before he'd had his, as you were saying, before he had his cancer diagnosis, and it was kind of it was in the middle of the Raw tour in Paris, so it was we were very short on time. The palace, Buckingham Palace, had asked me to take a quick portrait of him if there was time. They didn't tell me what they wanted to use it for, so I had no idea what they wanted it for. Maybe they had something in mind, I don't know. But they said if there's time, we'd love for you to take a quick portrait. And of course, he's in the middle of a tour, so we don't have much time at all. So that was actually taken when they were visited in the ambassador's garden. When he was there with Macron, and we just had a few minutes afterwards just to grab a few pictures. So I positioned him in this doorway, which I thought would look really nice.
What do you say? Excuse me, Your Majesty, would you mind? How does that conversation go?
Well, I had a few minutes before just to sort of look about where the best picture would work. I knew we were going to do try and do the picture in the garden, so I was looking around the garden, and at the light at the time, the light was changing quite a lot, and then I saw this sort of doorway, which I thought would work really well, but I had like minutes, so I did some test pictures with someone else that I just grabbed beforehand, and then spoke to his communications officer, and I said, look, I think it would work really well to do it here. And then so they just asked the king if we'd mind doing it, and then we brought him in and just did some quick pictures. He's very easy to work with, and we were able to get like a series of quick pictures, and then he was off, I think, for the state banquet. So it was all very rushed, and he was obviously had to go onto the state banquet, and it was a really, really busy time. But I was really pleased that I was able to get those pictures, and that I was asked to do it. And then sort of fast forward a few months, and then we had the announcement of that he had cancer, which of course I don't think any of us had any idea of. So that was a bit of a shock. Really nice that they used one of my images. Obviously,
They tell you in advance that they're going to use an image for something, or because it's already in their private collection, it's up to them, I suppose, to use it.
They'd asked if it was okay to use it, but they didn't tell me what it was for, because obviously they wanted to keep that news
information
that under wraps, which is fair enough given what it was. I think if it was used for anything else, they would have told me in advance, but because of this news, I think that obviously received not long before his cancer diagnosis, and I wasn't told about it. I was told that they were going to use it for something, but I didn't know what. So it was only when the news broke, when we all heard about it, that I saw that the picture was released for that.
And how do you become that trusted person that they go to, that they say, Zak or Samir, please we'd like you to take this particular image for us in a private capacity? What is it about your images that you think they like, or is it that you've built up that relationship with the palace over the decades? They trust you. How do you get to be in that position as a photographer where you're asked to take such an amazing, an important shot?
Sure, I think it's just building a relationship over time. I've been photographing in roles for over 15 years now. Worked very closely with the press teams, and I think the key word there is trust, that they can trust you, and that obviously your photography needs to stand out as well. They've obviously noticed my photography over the years, and that's something I've worked really hard on getting the exposure and getting the right kind of pictures. So it's a real honour that amongst all the other photographers that they sort of that they acknowledge the pictures that you take in and the relationship as well, and ask you to do it. But I think it's just really keeping going over time and working closely with them, and it's just paid off over time.
It has paid off. And Zak, I mean, have you learnt, Zak, from just talking to your father or being around when you were younger, many differences between how the royals deal with photographers then and now? Because Princess Diana, I think, used to kind of speak to the photographers personally herself, know some of their names and such like, and now we see a different relationship as well. There's more kind of, I guess, middlemen around, palace comms officials and things like that. Do you think that kind of relationship between the photographer and the member of the royal family has changed from what you've seen?
I think there's basically more control. They have a lot more control with the media and the photographers and the journalists. That it's very much, they are the middleman between the media and the royals. So it's not that often that we're in a position to talk to them or sort of have that kind of relationship one-on-one. You do, on tours and things, you do get, there are receptions where you get to talk to them, and it's all off the record. So, they're very much aware of who the credited royal photographers are, but there is that kind of distance now compared to when my dad was around photographing Diana. And I think a lot of that is they don't really want a repeat of Diana with the way that she was, and just doing her thing in her own way. So there's definitely a difference, I think, between the two, and that's something that I've talked about with my dad as well. It's just kind of a different time, really.
And you talked about earlier about the kind of the way in which it's changed more recently over the way William and Harry both got engaged and it took off. Those iconic images, you guys are also responsible for those images. We remember Meghan in that blue dress in the rain, and the engagement picture which went on the front of Vanity Fair. So can you tell me a bit about that, sort of documenting that love story through pictures?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we learned quite a lot from my dad, really, is that we could see through his archive, he's got like the whole journey of Diana from when she first came onto the royal scene all the way through to her death, and that really comes across in, like, for example, when we're able to put on an exhibition, this current the Diana exhibition, and so completely her whole legacy from the birth of her children, obviously her marriage before that, the breakdown of her marriage, all the royal tours, and really her coming out as this sort of global icon. So when I first started photographing the royals, I saw a great opportunity there to document William and Harry's lives. Really, we were Zach and myself are quite a similar age to William and Harry, and we first started photographing them before they were engaged or anything like that. And I could see, a really good sort of career there potentially, sort of photographing them when they got engaged, and then subsequently we photographed, the birth of their children and them with their children and all the royal tours they've been on, and you suddenly start building up this really sort of impressive archive that documents all the sort of key points to their life. And when you've been doing it for quite a long time, it starts to build up quite a legacy, and it's nice because it brings in the sort of two generations really that that my dad photographed, Charles and Diana, and then we're sort of taking on with the next generation, and it's just a really nice sort of thread to have. And that's something that worked really well with the exhibition, is that we could do this really nice comparison. For example, the pictures outside the Lindo wing when Charles and Diana came out with baby Prince William, and we've got the pictures of Kate and William coming out with Prince George and all the rest of the kids, and the pictures when they're stepping outside the door, they're nearly identical. And there's so many comparisons that we can do there of these kind of milestones. So that's really nice, and that's something that we've been really keen to continue doing.
And who's easier to photograph? Because I go on these tours with you guys, and I see, well, it used to be when Harry was on tours, and there was always, if there's a Harry engagement on a tour, like in Brazil or wherever it may be, you just knew there were going to be good pictures coming out of it, not just because you guys are brilliant at what you do, but because there was always something that there'd always be a funny moment. William, it felt like, has always been more reserved to me, that he's always been a bit of a sort of standoffish, not always played to the cameras in that way. Is that your experience of the brothers?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the key point with what you've said about William is that, he knows from a young age that he's the future king, so head of state. So that's definitely always going to play a part in the way that he's going to be with the press. And like you say, Harry was always, when we he used to do all these engagements, he was really fun. So I think, as a photographer, that the chances more often than not is you're going to get a fun picture with Harry.
Yeah. And obviously the rivalry between the brothers, I'm going to have to ask you guys as well. Sometimes you're at the same event, you're at trooping, but then maybe one of you gets the picture that goes on the front of a hello, one of you doesn't, or, how do you guys compete, and how does that work?
We're often at the same. We're almost always at the same engagement. So I don't know. I mean, we work separately. We work with different agencies. So our pictures are published quite often in different kind of places. So I don't know. What do you think, Sam?
No, I think it's sometimes one of you wins, sometimes the other ones lose. I think we can kind of see that and just ignore it. If Zach gets a front page, or if I get the front page, we don't wind each other up too much, because we know next time it might be different. I mean, I think it's the same with with all the other photographers. We're kind of in competition, but there's also it's just a bit of a friendly rivalry, so we try not to let it get too serious. When we're on road tours and stuff, we travel together and we stay together, so we try and keep things reasonably amicable. Otherwise it get out of hand. Yeah.
Try. What's interesting about both your websites, of course, you've not just done royals, you've done loads of celebrities. What do you think sets the royal family apart when it comes to photographing them? Are you ever surprised by the reach? Probably you're not now, but are you ever surprised by the huge interest in those pictures? And are they harder to get than sort of celebrity on the red carpet?
I think that the key difference, I would say is really comparable when you do sort of William and Kate on a royal tour, for just example, those two, the crowds that come out to see them are incredible. You would have seen it on the royal tours. I mean, it's just incredible to travel the world with the royals, just to see how popular in general they are around the world. And I think you forget that sometimes when you're just in the UK. It's just that the global reach for pictures of them is really incredible, and is, you know, definitely on the same level as, you know, the top A-list celebrities. I'd say the key difference in photographing them is that, you know, if you're photographing a red carpet event, for example, is that, you know, the celebrities will always stop and pose up and give you the picture, whereas the British royals very rarely do that. You know, they don't stop and pose; they just get on with the engagement. So that creates a different kind of picture. It's not necessarily worse, because you can pick more spontaneous moments. You know, it's kind of less. I don't necessarily like them posing too much, because it can be quite stiff. I prefer to photograph them when they're just sort of getting on with things, and you can get more spontaneous moments. But that is a key difference, and a key difference also between them and, you know, say like the Scandinavian royals, who will actually stop and try and pose up as well. So that's quite different. But in terms of global interest, it's they're up there with, you know, the top A-listers, I would say.
But I think there's definitely I think the thing is, with photographing the royals, like Sam says, they don't pose up, and that's, you know, it gives you the opportunity to get a different picture to everyone else. And, you know, like on a red carpet event, as Sam said, they pose up, so you've got 50 or 60 photographers all in a pen photographing very similar pictures. Whereas with the royals, you can be with other photographers, but everyone can end up with slightly different pictures depending on what lens you use, all this kind of stuff. And I think also the difference is that with royals, you have that feeling that you are documenting history a lot more, whereas with celebrities, they go to premieres all around the world, and, you know, you can take great pictures of them, but quite often they're not forgotten about, these pictures, but they're very much, the pictures of them are usually very current.
You're in the moment.
Yeah, whereas with the royals, it's, you know, you can look back on these pictures and they're all very different.
There's a brilliant picture of Kate and Princess of Wales and Princess Charlotte, which showed their kind of relationship at trooping. And I'm sorry to say I forgot who took the photograph, so I'm going to add to the rivalry now to ask whose that was.
Oh, that was me.
And I think that's a great example of showing the relationship. We've been talking about the kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's exactly the moment that Zak's talking about, those sorts of things that kind of, there are tons of photographers watching that palace balcony, and sometimes it's just that one image, or you get lucky, or you spot something that nobody else spots. Is that what you're looking for the image then, Samir? You're looking for that kind of, you're looking for that moment that tells the story, is it? Or...
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking for, you know, it can just be a split second, a spontaneous moment. But for me, it's looking for that moment that shows more of a human side, a candid moment that shows them to be human. And that's, I mean, the picture I got it was used on the front of Hello magazine is a picture of Charlotte looking up at her mum and Kate looking down at her, and they're both smiling at each other. And it's just a lovely, it just really shows the mother-daughter bond that they have. And, you know, that's a picture people can look at and instantly see this mother-daughter bond, and something people really identify with. And that's what they, you know, really like, you know, in seeing the royals. You photograph a lot of engagements, which, you know, just by the nature of them can be quite stiff. But what I'm really looking for is just a split second. And you often see it with William and Kate, for example. You know, they can be, you know, giving handshakes and talking to people, and it's not really making a picture, but you know that there's probably going to be a moment where William and Kate will just turn spontaneously and smile at each other, or put their hand on each other's back or something like that. And it can literally be a split second, but that's the key picture that will come away from that. And it just shows a bit more of the character, a bit more of the human side, and stuff that people can, I think, really identify with. And they're the kind of candid moments that I'm always looking for. And I think over the years you kind of learn to anticipate those moments through experience. You know, they're kind of traits, you know, their kind of expressions, and yeah, that you know that's
You're
going
the ultimate royal watchers, aren't you? The photographers.
I guess so. It's just these little details that you pick up on that, you know, maybe other people wouldn't know, but you know it. You can anticipate it. You know it's going to happen, and it's split seconds. That's the key moment that you have to be ready for. So you always, even when things could be looking like quite a dull moment, you don't want to put your camera down because you know a picture can come out of nowhere.
And like another great example, and it was Kate and Charlotte again at an engagement. They were looking out the window. There were the very big crowd gathered, and suddenly Charlotte looked at the crowd and just stuck her tongue out.
That was a brilliant image.
Yeah, and you can see the reaction of Kate, and she's like, "Oh God," you know, she's totally embarrassed, and you know that shows that human side where. You know, she's probably
the kids are great for that, aren't they? Because
that's the thing.
The kids haven't read the memo. You know,
exactly.
They're going to be kids, and then the adults react in the moment, and you get that kind of true sense.
And you don't know it's going to happen. You just something like that. You just have no idea it's going to happen, and it, like Sam says, it happens in a split second, and it's easy to miss. But you know, if you're holding your camera up and you capture it, it ends up being a great image.
Brilliant. And have you spent much time with Princess Anne, either of you? Because, of course, we know that she's now back at Gatcombe Park. She's recovering after head injuries, which are thought to be sustained by impact with a horse, while she was out walking about just a little over a week ago while we're at the time of recording this. What can you tell us about her, having witnessed her firsthand and up close? Is there anything about her spirit that you think will get her through this tough time?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've photographed her, you know, a lot over the years. Last time we photographed her was at Royal Ascot, just a couple of weeks ago, just before this accident. And you know, as we all know, she's like incredibly hardworking. She's so dedicated. You know, I think she does more royal engagements than anyone else. So she's incredibly dedicated. So I think, you know, we'll have to see how long, you know, this keeps her out for, but I've no doubt that she'll want to be out there as soon as possible, and especially with what's been a very tough year with the Royals, with the cancer for the King and Kate. I think, you know, she's sort of one of those Royals that's had to sort of, you know, really hold things together. So I think she'll be really, really keen to be out there whenever she gets the all clear, no doubt about that. I don't think she's going to hold back.
And Zak, anything you're looking forward to? Obviously, everything seems to be up in the air because we've had we've been talking about the cancer diagnosis of the King and the Princess of Wales. Now we've got Princess Anne out of action. But is there things that you're looking forward to, Zak? You know, we hope obviously that the King will go to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting later this year. Are there key points in your calendar that you've got in your diary that you've got marked out that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the case for everyone, that I'm very much looking forward to Kate coming back on the scene and doing jobs, because she's so great to photograph and there's so much interest in her. And then from that, I guess what I'm looking forward to the most is another royal tour. They're great, you know, as you know, they're really good fun. They're hard work, but you just get such great images from them. So
that's right.
Definitely.
They are hard work, but you also get that access, I think, that you don't necessarily get on the kind of day-to-day here.
Exactly. It's probably my favourite part of the job. So I'm very much looking forward to the next royal tour, wherever that is, and hopefully it's soon.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to both of you. Give my regards to your father as well. And the exhibition's brilliant. 75 pictures, and you can see it. Tell us about it. Where can you go to see it, and how long is it open for?
It's at St Catherine's Dock in London. It's on until September, and you know, obviously I'm going to say it, but it is fantastic. There's so many great images of Diana, and I think it's really good for all generations. It's not necessarily an older generation that would like to go, that were around when Diana was there, because I think there's a lot of people now that are a younger generation that's interested in Diana. So yeah, I think it's great. And then you get
That's so true. There's people who've watched The Crown and they're,
exactly,
they're learning. The thing is, they're learning all that story for the first time, aren't they?
exactly,
The younger people, and they're sort of fascinated by it. So
yeah, exactly. So and you can see all that at the
this
exhibition.
charts the story. This charts the true royal story
Yeah,
from the people
100%.
who were there
Yeah.
as it all unfolded in front of you. So what a great thrill to go and see that exhibition if you're in London this summer. And I will say goodbye for now. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching or listening to Royal Confidential. You can read more from me in the Times, and please subscribe for more royal updates. But for now, goodbye.